Welcome to South Florida Writers Association Authors Showcase. South Florida Writers Association is a nonprofit organization supporting writers. Today, we will be talking with Dr. Jasmine Sandoval, who writes as JC Sang. Welcome, Jazz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to hear everything you've got to tell us. Got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. But first, let's talk a little bit about you. I'm going to go ahead
Okay.
and read a little bit of your bio. So, Dr. Jasmine Sandoval is a nurse leader, author, cancer survivor, and Army veteran. With over 25 years in the medical field and 15 years as a registered nurse, she brings a unique blend of expertise and storytelling to every stage and page. She is the author of The Writer's RX, or The Writer's Prescription, as a guide for writers who want to master the art of immersive storytelling. Writing fiction under the pen name JC Sang, she explores fiction that delves into resilience and human connection.
Great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Jazz. So anything else you want to add to that? Because that's very interesting.
Oh, that's pretty much it. We'll just get into it with the questions and we'll see as we go.
Okay. All right. So let's do that. So the first question I want to ask you is, how did you find South Florida Writers Association?
I actually had a friend in the community who it was through Toastmasters organization. I actually learned about it from one of the board members. She knows who she is, and she had posted about it to help. I can't remember what it was, whether it was an author speaking or it was a guest speaker. And I saw the information. I thought, oh wow, there's a writers association locally and reputable enough that, my colleague here is a board member. And so it really got me interested. I kind of pocketed that information in my back pocket for about a year or so before I really truly reached out and looked into the information and found out they had critique groups and just exactly what I needed as a brand new writer and wanting to take it seriously. So that's when I reached out, went to a trial meeting for, free. Really liked the atmosphere and the people and what they had to offer, and that's when I joined.
That's excellent. And you also became a board member.
Yes, yes.
So what do you do for the board?
So I am the webmaster for the board. I do my best with the little limited knowledge that I know. I grew up in the age of coding and Angel Fire and doing blogs, and so I learned a little bit here and there, and I figured it shouldn't be too difficult. So when a position became open and the person who was webmaster previously had held multiple roles within the board, I figured I was going to just take that as an opportunity to jump in and do what I can to help make it a little bit different and improved in a way. Not that it wasn't to begin with,
Right.
but just to really bring a new edge of something different to it as best as I could, because it's still, what I do is still child's play compared to what true webmasters do, but I do my best.
Well, it's looking very good. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
Of
Yes,
course.
thank you. It's made a big difference. So thank you. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Okay. So I host a podcast and YouTube channel called Comfort Kills with Dr. Jazz. And I started it during COVID. So it was my COVID baby. And what I did in the podcast was I looked for people to interview that came from some sort of trauma and have overcome it with some sort of triumph. And so there was a lot of interviews that I learned in just wanting to meet different people from different walks of life and how they got to their successes. I learned that a lot of people came from some sort of pain in the past, and there was a lot of resilience behind what motivated them to get to where they were. Because of that, the energy of the season one to season two shifted, and I ended up speaking to a lot of caregivers and a lot of people who came from different types of backgrounds and have just since been so successful. And so because of that, I met so many different people from all over the world. I interview people out of Australia. I've had somebody out of the UK before, and of course the United States. And so there was just a lot of learning about how our cultures are so different, but yet so similar, and how we kind of grow up in our own world and society.
Right. So when you're looking for a guest for your podcast, what is it that you're looking for?
I'm looking for somebody who can share their raw and resilient story, right? So I'm not looking for somebody. And I hate to say this, but I'm not looking for somebody who just kind of had things handed to them in life. I want somebody who really has a true story that can inspire other people around them to say, you know what, I come from a similar background, and if this person can do it, I can too. So the goal of my seeking speakers for the show had always been, if I can make one change, if I can shift one mindset with that entire 45-minute video or podcast sample, then I've done my due diligence, and I've done, I've made a difference. And so that was the whole goal. It started out with just me speaking to a camera for 15 to 20 minutes at a time, but it gets boring when you're just telling people what to do. But shockingly, those are the ones that do really well, maybe because it's shorter. But the interviews themselves, each of my guests had great followings, and so it really brought people there. And the topics that we spoke about were so vastly different. I've had veterans. I interviewed at the time, he was 99 or 98 years old. He recently passed last year at the age of 102, a local World War II veteran. And I've also interviewed people. I've interviewed my youngest cameo in an interview was I think he was 10 years old at the time. And so there's been so many vast differences, but as long as somebody made a huge difference, then, I was interested in speaking to them. And most of the time I used the content and was able to deliver a video that was very inspiring.
I'm sure it must be very inspiring from 10 to 99. That's
Yeah.
wow. Wow.
Yes.
So curious to know about the 10-year-old, what he had to share.
Gosh, I can't even remember, but it had something to do with him writing a letter, and it went completely viral. It was all over the news. And I just so happened to be like, hey, reached out to his mom, and she was like, yes, I'm all for it. And then she jumped on, and we had like this lovely interview, and she was like in the background, kind of like helping guide him along with the conversation. It was really, really fun. Because we had him who made a difference, and it was something he did in the community. And it's been so long that I can't remember the exact details, but it was definitely something that he, like, as a 10-year-old, I was like, this is amazing. There are people making a difference at all, ages, all kinds of background, all kinds of ages. And he was definitely one that was, the epitome of that.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So, Comfort Kills. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that title.
It's a shortened version. The original intent behind Comfort Kills was Comfort Kills Ambition. So, and then the motto was get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then, all of that and the tagline was just way too long. So I shortened it to Comfort Kills. It had enough connection to me as a nurse working in healthcare to kind of like spark some interest, because you think as a healthcare worker, you're here to save lives. But here I am hosting a podcast and YouTube channel that's called Comfort Kills. And so it makes it very intriguing. And so that's where it really came from. So it truly was Comfort Kills Ambition. And then I shortened it down to Comfort Kills. And it was just so like it caught on so fast, and people were so interested in being a guest on the show that it stuck. It's stuck for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good title. I think
Thank
anybody
you.
would be interested in seeing what that's about. And you still continue to do these podcasts today?
I'm restarting it. So I took a little hiatus. I retired it for about almost 2 years now. I'm restarting it now, with intent to really hit more on the healthcare aspect of things. I think there's a lot to be said, especially with our aging population around us and everything. And then just people in general. I think illnesses are becoming more complex. And so I really want to just speak with people who come from different healthcare type background. So I don't know if it's a permanent change and shift in direction, or if it's a season 3 shift in direction, but I'm definitely looking at that. And I'd like to just hear kind of people's stories. And I want it to connect back to the projects that I'm working on. And that's the reason for the slight shift. But still stories of, triumph. So
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. All right. So was there something very specific that inspired you to create this podcast? But aside from, wanting to share stories, was there something personal that inspired? I mean, usually there's something behind the
So I
inspiration.
th I think the answer for that would probably be similar to what many faced and witnessed during the COVID timeframe. The entire idea was born in the heart of like in the mix of COVID, when people were looking for hope and they were looking for other things other than turning on TV and listening about how many more people have died in the community or how many other things are going on and how short it, like how much of a shortage we had in the hospital and everything and worldwide, just like the calamity that was happening. And I think we needed more stories of hope. And that was my entire reason of starting it. And I think my first couple of episodes, there were so many different things about just me channeling myself and like mirroring what I was going through. Like there was, I think my best single video podcast in views and listens was called The Imposter Syndrome. And I'm just going on and on blabbing about imposter syndrome and how it impacts me and how I need to get through it for 15 minutes. And that's like the highest viewing one. And I just thought, wow, like people clearly are looking for ways to kind of get themselves out of that funk or whatever it is that's holding them down and limiting them from being able to live to their fullest potential. And so that's where it stemmed from. And then each season I tried to find like a little shift and a little difference. And the more I spoke to people, the more I realized we all come from very similar backgrounds. It's just, do you have it in you and in your heart to want to keep driving forward and pushing down those barriers that's holding you back?
Yeah, and I would say a lot of people need that. We need a little
Yes.
push.
Yes.
We need to see also that we're not alone.
Hmm.
A lot of us are going through maybe not the same exact, hardship or trauma, but we all go through something. And when we
Yes.
see that there's other people who are also struggling through it, it,
Yes.
it helps. Not
Yes.
because someone else is going through it and you're happy someone else is going through it, but because you're watching them be able to go through it and get past it. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so we know we can also get past it.
Yes, and
So when
that's absolutely, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Um, that's 100% the entire intent of that. And as and I didn't have the answers to everything. And so clearly I was just doing this to find answers for myself and I'm just hitting record as I go. And there were so many moments of realization and of me finding myself within it, within the conversations that I'm having with people, because then they're now in reverse asking me, well, what made you join the military? What made you do this? What made you do that? Like, where was the shift for you? And that's when I'm like on a whim, impromptu, I realized how these different aspects of my life had impacted my choices and direction along the way. So,
Sure. Yes, because we realize that people are just a reflection of what's going on inside us.
yes.
And by helping others, we're actually looking to help ourselves, even though
Yeah.
we may not realize it at the moment, but we're helping ourselves, we're helping them, we're helping,
Yes.
as a collective.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's very good. So you were talking about imposter syndrome. Were
Yeah.
you referring to anything with the medical field or are you referring to your writing?
I think at the time, writing was kind of a in the back of my mind kind of thing. It actually didn't come into fruition later on until I had actually an interview with another podcast host, and she brought it up. But the imposter syndrome was really just me saying, like, who am I to sit here and think that my face and my voice would make a difference in the world somewhere? Like, who am I to hit record and just put this out there for the world to listen to? So the imposter syndrome really just came from that. It wasn't me necessarily from my like professional world as much as it was just me finding my place. I'm always looking to find my place. I'm always looking to like continue my education and find new things. And like I felt like my parents came from like a war-torn country, and so it's expected of me to find a place in this new world and to find my footing and to leave a legacy. I think that was my most important thing, was like, what legacy am I leaving behind? Because they say like the most expensive place is in a graveyard where people die with their hopes and dreams and these wishes that they never made come true. And so I didn't want to be that. I wanted to live my life to the fullest, knowing that, at my celebration of life, that my family would say she did everything she ever wanted to do. No matter how many different directions she went in, she did it, and she did it to the best of her ability. And it was a real profound thing for me to create that show.
And do you feel like you're racing against time, trying to get everything in?
I do. I do. I always felt that way before. Um, and I feel that way more so recently with my mom being diagnosed with dementia. Oh my God. So yeah, that definitely it hits home differently because now I know like life is super short. Um, an illness can come down at any time, and it'll shift the way you prioritize what you're currently doing.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that aspect of your life. And sorry to hear that as well. That, it all the hardships that we go through can really be used to help others. And
Mhm.
it's great that you're doing this, using all your experiences, even if it's trying to do everything that you can in your life, because you're you're seeing that it's not a drill. Life is not a drill. It's now,
Mhm.
it's not going to be later.
Yes.
And you're
Yeah.
using that not just for yourself, but to help others as well. So again, thank you for that. And thank you
Thank you.
for sharing that with us. So I want to get into the writing.
Mhm.
I would like to know, when did you begin writing? When did you start writing, or when did you even feel? I know you said you always had it in the back of the mind.
Yeah.
Um,
I've always wrote really well. I've wrote speeches, I've wrote stories, I've always wrote. Like I was the kid at our eighth grade promotion doing the speech, and I knew like I had to write something very compelling and I had to really like grab the audience. Um, I also in middle school, I wrote, they had like a book contest or something. Like you had to write your own story. And I ended up winning first place. And I regret never like advocating to bring that book home because they wanted to put it in the library shelf. And all I remember is I illustrated the cover of it, and it was like the back of my head facing a window with like, like the typical cross window, and I'm holding a hairbrush staring out the window, and the hairbrush from a distance looks like a drumstick, a chicken drumstick. And I thought it was like the silliest thing. And then by then I had already illustrated it. There was no time for like, to change it up because it's all on paper. But I don't remember what it was, but I remember really loving reading books, like thriller books. And so I remember using like, and then something, something, there was gunshot wound in there. And I was smart enough and savvy enough in my reading to know that gunshot wounds in eighth grade or seventh grade was also known as GSWs. And so I'm using all these like, you know, big girl abbreviated words that actual thriller writers and suspense writers would put into their book, and I was using it in the book, and I ended up winning first place. So I always knew that I had enjoyed that moment of like, wow, she won a prize for it. So that was when it's always been there, it's always been there. And then when I had actually spoke with another author in my podcast for interviewing her, she actually sat back and she said to me, "You know what, Jasmine, this is what I see for you. I see you taking all of these stories that you have collected throughout this podcast and YouTube adventure, and I see you putting all of that into a book." And I'm like, you know what? That's a really good idea because I have met so many people in my walk of life, either through that or through my profession, that there's a lot to write about. And so, and that's what I ended up, eventually doing. And part of my first book that I wrote has stories from some of my people that I've interviewed before. They're changed names and identity and places are slightly different, but the essence of the story is there.
Isn't it incredible how one path leads you to another path?
Yes,
And had you
absolutely.
not gone into that path, maybe that other path would not have opened up.
Right,
So it's
right.
so important to follow your inspiration for whatever it is, even if sometimes
Exactly.
you're not even sure why you're doing it, but you just have the inspiration to do it.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah,
And it was her who planted that seed. Once she planted that seed, I couldn't let it go. Like I knew it was there, and I'm like, she's right. And then all these stories I've had with my patients and everything, she's so right. I have so much to say. And there's no one author out there who has done it in the way that is compelling enough for me as a healthcare worker to be like, that's real life right there. Like that actually happens. It's conveyed on TV through all these different medical drama shows, but I haven't found that book yet that actually conveys it. And so that's why I was like, I've got something different on me. Yeah.
absolutely. So you're the one that's going to write that that book
Yeah.
that you're
I
wanting
hope
to
so.
read.
Yes,
Or
yes,
you've written it
exactly.
already. So we're going to get
Yes.
into that more. But do you still have that story you wrote in the eighth grade?
I don't.
You
I
don't?
don't remember the details of it. I don't remember what happened. I may have mixed in some of my reoccurring nightmares into it because I feel like that actually kind of makes sense if I did. I'm actually kind of afraid. It's almost like a, like they say write what you know. And as much as we writers say, oh no, this is completely fictitious. No, there's still borrowed things from certain aspects of our life or the people around us that becomes very real. And yes, it's fiction, but it stems from somewhere. And so I'm afraid I'm afraid what my middle school self wrote in a book, all I remember is gunshot wounds and I don't remember who it was that got shot.
That's so interesting. And you're absolutely right. I always say that whether we're writing fiction or nonfiction,
Mhm.
we're digging into the subconscious mind. And
Yes.
just that in itself, just that coming to surface,
Hmm.
even if you're not writing, even if you're painting, just, however it is that it's expressing itself,
Hmm.
it's healing whatever it is that's, in the subconscious mind that needed healing. That's why it's coming up.
Yeah.
So that is right. I mean, we pull a lot from there. We pull from our, environment, and um, I think that's excellent. So, an excellent point. Book it.
Yes.
Tell us about Book It.
That would be truly the start of my love for reading,
Okay.
right? And Reading Rainbow. I have to give Reading Rainbow
Mhm.
mad props as well. Book It in okay, so I grew up in the DMV, so the DC, Maryland, Virginia metropolitan area. There is a very specific apartment complex there, and I won't necessarily name it. There's a very specific apartment complex there that if you knew somebody who said, "I grew up here, like this is where I spent my childhood," you knew that they kind of came from very, very humble beginnings. So the neighborhood itself also had a elementary school within the neighborhood, and so like all of us would walk to school together and then walk back to our respective apartment buildings and everything. And just outside the apartment complex is a Pizza Hut and a 7-Eleven. And that was my first exposure to American food as an Asian refugee immigrant. And my teacher was giving out bookets, okay, read a book, read X amount of books and you'll get a booklet voucher so that you can go to Pizza Hut and receive a personal pan pizza. She realized how fast I was reading through books, and I think part of her thought that it was also because of me not maybe having food at home, which was partially true. Like there was some truth behind that. More so, I just wanted American pizza from Pizza Hut. So when she gave me a voucher, she would give me two or three at a time for my efforts. And then I would be able to feed myself. I had an older brother, and then my little brother was a baby at the time, so I don't think he was necessarily eating it, but then I could give it to my friends too. So, she was very, very compassionate in that sense that she was just handing them out to us because she knew that all of us who went to that school were from a very, very lower socioeconomic background. And so, because of that, it really drove my love for reading because I'm like, wow, all I have to do is read and I get, gifted a voucher to go eat amazing pizza. And so, to this day, I'll still eat, like it might not be everybody's favorite, but Pizza Hut personal pan pizzas, it's my thing. And so that's what she did. And that's what drove me. And I absolutely love it. I love the fact that there were people who worked in positions of like her, who's a teacher, who are around children who can make a difference in that type of way. And I think that's what drove my love for reading because I realized that there was incentives to being a good avid reader.
Did you have any favorite books that you remember back then?
Um, at that young age, no, I don't remember that far back, but I do remember later on, late elementary school, maybe middle school age, I started reading a lot of VC Andrew books. And so I would really get um, consumed by the world that VC Andrews created, by the generational trauma that came from these children. And I think it really gave me like a weird enough escape at that age to know that life could be so much worse than what I thought my life was. Like as a child, you want to be, you have this brat mentality sometimes that you think, oh, my life is so terrible. My mom is so mean. But when I read books like that, it immersed me into a different world that I'm like, yeah, my life's not that bad. So I really enjoyed reading those books because it would be like three or four at a time. And each one was, one was like the main character in book one, and then in book two would be like the main character's grandmother, and then book three would be like the main character's uncle. And then you start understanding why each person from those different generational pieces like would impact how the original story even transpired. And it was very well weaved into each other, and like that's always been, my all-time favorite.
Do you have any opinions about this censoring that's going on now with schools?
I wish it wasn't the case. I feel like it's very unfortunate. I try so hard not to get like overwhelmed by what's going on in our world right now. And I just feel it's really sad. I feel like the books are there for a reason. I personally went out and bought quite a few of those censored books, and they're all behind me. I bought a bunch of them because I was like, I need this like for my own collection to support it, whoever's still selling them to support it so that I don't know, so that for some reason, I think my collection is going to be important one day. So it's there so that it doesn't get burned, it doesn't get, disappear. And it's kept safely in an environment that is respecting it, and so I feel it's really sad. It's very unfortunate. I think there are so many other things we need to be concerned about rather than censoring children's books. But everybody wants their own opinion. I just wish that the government wasn't involved, just like I wish the government wasn't involved in women's bodies either. So there's so many things, like healthcare, education. Well, education is a little political, but there are just certain things we shouldn't touch.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I always think that when it comes to books, the parents should be the ones to
Right.
censor, to
Exactly.
allow or not allow according to, their beliefs or what they want
Exactly.
their kids to read or not read or know or not know, not
Hmm.
necessarily the government. That's,
Agreed.
yeah. Okay, so at in eighth grade, right? That's when you wrote that story, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
I wish I knew what the title was.
GSW, right? With the GSW, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Do you ever think of I know you said that you'd be scared of revisiting that, to know where your mind was at that moment, but do you remember the theme of it? And have you ever considered like rewriting it from today's point of view, from who you are today?
That would be pretty cool. If I could, my mental archive has completely locked it out. I remember the visual and I remember like those certain phrases, but I don't remember what it is. But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to trying harder
Because
and maybe,
yeah, I'd be curious to know if started to dig in there, if it would start opening up and
right.
that memory would surface because it's all in there. It's not like,
Yeah.
we lose it. We just are not remembering it.
Yes.
I'd be
Yeah.
curious to
Yeah.
know and how the story would change from
Right.
perspective to now.
Right, right. In fun fact, my first novel that I wrote, that's in query stages right now, it does have a gunshot wound in there. It follows a nurse in the ED, and it does have a gunshot wound situation. And I was so excited to put gunshot wound, GSW. Like I was
There's
really excited to
yeah,
use that reference.
yeah. So
Yeah,
there's still a thread to it somehow
yeah,
or another. So there's
exactly.
probably some paralleling to that
Hmm.
story back then. All right, so now let's get into the first book that you've published,
Hmm.
which is The Writer's RX. Got it right
Yes.
here.
Yay.
And this is
Um,
such an excellent book. I just want to like give my opinion first.
mhm. Yeah,
Because
of
it's such
course.
an excellent book. And I call it like the visceral thesaurus.
Hmm.
It's so important to give depth to the characters.
Yes.
And thank you for putting this out. I mean, this is just such an excellent idea. Where did you get the inspiration to do this?
So the inspiration stemmed from a lot of note taking. As I was writing my medical thriller novels, I realized what I wanted to do as my credentials as a nurse and having the healthcare background, I wanted as much as possible to fully immerse readers. And I am such a consumer. I have every single writer's guide that you can think of, but not one of them actually had more intensive healthcare related, body related type visceral reactions. And so I was like, well, I can't just write a book and say, you know, her heart was pounding in her chest. I want more of, well, what is the body mechanics that's causing that? You know, if your heart's pounding, what else is pounding? What else is going on in your body? If your heart's pounding, that means your blood's rushing. If your blood's rushing, then that means you're probably getting a little red and rashy, maybe in the neck area, or you're just starting to get like a hot flash. Maybe your temple is starting to bound really, really hard on the side, and it's causing a headache on top of that. And with the headache, maybe some visual disturbances. And so I'm just getting very nerdy with all of this, and I'm writing down all of my notes. And as I'm writing my first novel, I have a gazillion notes on what parts of the body is impacted, and when this happens, what other parts are also trickling as a result, the domino effect of it. And so as I'm writing these notes and this novel, I realized I had an entire another book that was a resource to anybody and everyone. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just put this together, format it in a way that is just very simple and easy. There's a whole bunch of things that I had already wrote down, and then I just really needed to tap into a couple of different other areas in the body. So we go from like the brain to the heart to even the vertigo and the tinnitus that you might hear or feel during like extreme situations where maybe a loud bang goes off, like a shot, like a gunshot goes off in the distance or something. And so what's that causing with like the ringing in your ears, down to like the nausea that you feel that when you're super, super nervous, and like the pins and needles that you feel in your hands and feet. So I just started really expanding upon it, and I came up with like over 800 different like lists that people can just use and like plug that in or make it more relevant or use it, you know, in a way that fits into their story writing, so that we go beyond like the she has butterflies in her stomach. Well, what does that actually mean? You know, like we know what that is, but what does it really mean? And so like as a nurse, if I wrote we have butterflies, I would be embarrassed because I feel like it's not enough. Like I can say so much more because I know what the anatomy is. And that's where it kind of came from, is me just utilizing my anatomy knowledge and my physiology knowledge, and really just bringing it together and like keeping it very simple so that any writer can use it and not look like they're trying to be like a medical doctor, you know?
Right,
So,
exactly. So I feel like you felt like you as an author owes the reader, because of
yes,
your background and all your knowledge, owes
yes,
the reader a little bit more in depth
yes.
to what, a character may be going through, besides just the emotional aspect of it, but what's going
Hmm.
on physiologically as well.
Yes,
And it's very
yes.
well organized, I have to say. And I also want to say that, I mean, this is great for writers, but this is just great educational wise. Like
Yeah,
it's enlightening, it's educational. Like even if you're not writing a book, it really has a lot of like good stuff in here. So
right, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is great. So when did you write this? When did you publish it?
I published it November of 2025. I haven't as aggressively marketed as much as I'd want to. I've done a lot of like local things with the Miami Book Fair through our organization. And it's come out with me a couple of different times when I've had the opportunity to, because I've been so heavily focused on writing the novels. And but I just think that it's such a great resource. But ironically, like the sales have happened organically, and I've been trying for so long to get TikTok to accept my sales page, and there's just some discrepancy that they won't allow me to just do the click and buy. But I've been trying to promote it when I can, because I don't want to be entirely salesy. The goal was not to become rich off of it. The goal was just to provide a resource to people. And as I'm utilizing it within my own writing and everything, it's starting to pick up. And like I'm seeing the sales happen on barnesandnobles.com and on amazon.com. And so it's actually been kind of like fun, because I'm like, wow, people are actually buying this. And the reviews and everything that are coming in are actually have been really great too. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
been super
and
exciting.
isn't it interesting, because like you said, you weren't writing it to like get rich off it. You're
Hmm.
writing it for yourself, and so for other authors as well. But because you didn't have the intention of like, I'm trying to get rich off it, you sort of like
Hmm.
let it be. And I
Yeah.
always feel that that's so important to actually, for the flow of sales to come through, is like when you
Yep.
sort of like let it be. Because when we hold on and we're so tense about it's got to sell, it's got to sell, I got to make money,
Hmm.
we restrict that energy. It's like a restriction frequency that
Yes.
lingers in through the book, and it doesn't happen then the way we want it. So
Right.
that just goes to show you, that the more you relax about it, it's
Yeah.
gonna do its thing. So
Yes.
that's excellent to make that point as well. So tell us about your upcoming projects. Tell us about this novel that you've
Okay.
already written.
Hmm.
You have so many projects coming up, and I really feel that you truly are trying to do as much as you can.
Hmm.
I see all your upcoming projects, the ones you're working on, the ones that you have planned that you haven't started yet, but
Hmm.
already,
Yes.
in your
It's
agenda.
mapped out in here.
Yes, exactly. And you work as well.
Yeah.
You still work, and you have a household, you have a family to take care of, and you really dedicate your time also to the South Florida Writers Association, even
Hmm.
not just going to the board meeting once a month, but you're the webmaster, so you're on there all the time, and we're always
Yes.
bugging you. So how do you do it? How do you find the time? Is it just pure will?
Yes. It
Okay.
is. It is. And the thing with me is when something's nagging me enough, like I have to get it done. There's no putting it off. There's no like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. It really needs to get done. And so I will be, I commute via public transit to get to work. And so I will be sitting there and then just like I'm listening to an audiobook and just enjoying my time and relaxing on the train. And then suddenly a thought would come to me and I'm like, and then I'm in my notes and I'm writing more notes. And I was like, make sure this character, this happens. And then I'm like writing these little things and it just comes to me. And then when I get home, I'm like, I have to write this out. I have to whip out the scene. And then here I am, like 1,000 words later, suddenly I have a whole scene around like just that one little idea that popped into my head at the most random moment. And so the projects that I'm working on is I have one that's currently in the query trenches, and it's got a working title. It's called Bound in Silence, and it's a medical thriller. And it follows in the vein of medical suspense and psychological thriller, but it does have an essence of sexual assault up in there as well. So it's a very taboo topic, and I think it's more difficult for me to get people to buy into it because the topic is just so sensitive. But I promise that the writing has a lot of dark humor as well as light moments in order to really balance and offset the topic, and I've ran it through multiple critique groups, and each of the critique groups have always said, like I said to them, my goal is to never highlight the ugly of what, sexual violence looks like. But I do need to tap into the emotions of the person who's going through it. So I've tried very hard to be as sensitive as possible in those cases. The two stories that happen within my first book are based on true events. And so I'm really tapping into those individuals that have like lived through this and I've been by their side when it happened to really tap into it while being respectful of the entire situation. And then tapping into things that are really happening in our society right now, human trafficking and all those other things that, ties into sexual violence and trafficking humans. Um, that's the first book. And then the second one that I wrote that is actually entering query trenches very, very soon, probably by the time we release this, has a working title called Out of Reach. And it's also based on the same series, which is I just retitled it to the Miami Beach Medical Center Hospital series. Name is we're still working on that name, but it's a paranormal thriller, also medical suspense. And so there's a lot of like, and there's a romance element into it that follows a dual POV between husband and wife, who both are nurses at the hospital, but they live very separate lives because they work in two very different areas. And then when they come together, there's just not right about their marriage that's just not working out for them. And so they kind of go their separate ways. So it's, that and so that is actually I've critiqued it and it's going to an editor now like this week, and then the current project that I'm working on I like took a little shift and it's actually a fantasy dystopian mix, and I'm probably like a third of the way into that one, and it has still elements of healthcare in it because my main character is a healer. She has healing magic, and so it makes it really, really fun because I can still use my medical knowledge, but then like just completely go crazy with it in like a magical realm of things and using herbs that really does not exist because we're in dystopian period and that, these things just don't exist. And so that's really fun because I get to be super, super creative, but it's so hard because then I go like too crazy and I'm like, I don't know if this makes sense. So my husband and my son are really big fantasy readers, so I have them proofread for me to say, okay, how does this make sense? And then I'm running ideas through my son, and I'm like, okay, tell me if, like, what do I need to do to make, like, bring the conflict into this scene? And like, he's just like, you gotta kill somebody off. And I'm like, oh my God, but I don't want to kill this character off. And so I'm getting lots of inspiration from around me as I'm working. And then I have all these other crazy ideas, and we've mentioned it before with like a nonfiction, but then imposter syndrome, like who am I to write a nonfiction? Who wants to read about me? But I feel like there's a lot of people in the same situation as me, being like a refugee, immigrant, and having just that similar background that like we all have something to say. Just nobody has had the opportunity to really say it in ebook form.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you considering writing about your background, your experience as a refugee immigrant, the transition coming to the United States? Have you
Mhm.
considered writing about that?
So my transition is limited because I would have to write it from a different perspective, I think, if I went that route. My mom was pregnant with me when she got on a boat leaving South Vietnam. And it was through the efforts of a ship that saw them lost at sea that rescued them. Otherwise, we would have never survived. And so when she landed at a refugee camp in Malaysia, they saw how pregnant she was, and they're like, you're not going anywhere until you have this baby. So I was birthed overseas. And then shortly thereafter, we made our trek and then to the Philippines and then to here. I came here when I was 7 months old. So I have zero knowledge of what it was like making it here. I think my earliest memory is probably around 2 or 3 years old. So I would probably have to just do it through her perspective. And that would be a wild story because my mom had a lot of crazy stories to share.
But I imagine so. So that's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
would you consider that? Because I mean, just with the little bits that you mentioned here and
Hmm.
a couple of other stories that you've mentioned, privately about some
Hmm.
stories that you've heard from your mom,
Yeah.
it makes me think I want to read that, I
Yeah.
want to read that because it is very interesting that whole transition. I mean, being lost at sea,
Hmm.
being picked up by a ship, having to be held because your mom was pregnant. That's very interesting, and I know that there's more interesting, you know, facts in there
Yeah.
as well that you've mentioned
Yeah.
to me earlier. So I mean, that should be something definitely. I think that would be,
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
consider that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consider
So,
that.
and then, so like, there's so many ideas, right? There's that. And then there's also like, I work in oncology. I'm a cancer survivor. And like, I want to tap into that from perhaps a nonfiction perspective, maybe fiction. I'm not 100% sure. Because I have a really great idea in my head for that. And there's a lot of things that goes on in the world of oncology that, we see as healthcare providers and then people see as family members, but then as the patient themselves, it's a completely different ballpark because of the emotions that we're feeling and the grief that we feel inside of us, even though we know my situation is still way better than a million other people who have been diagnosed with cancer. The feelings are still very similar. We still all go through the same thing. And so, I feel like there wasn't enough of that out there. And so there's an opportunity for so many of us writers to start putting pen to paper, because we need more stories that shares hope.
Right. And I know that you're working on, I have so many questions for you okay. You're
Yeah.
working on anthology. I want to get back to the novels, but
Yes.
because we're talking about, oncology here. And I know that you are working on a project of anthologies.
Yes.
Have you considered doing an anthology about patient people who have gone through the cancer journey,
Hmm.
possibly,
Yes.
writing their stories? Have you considered doing something like that to that effect?
Yes. So it's definitely right now we're doing with my one of my projects is an anthology for meant to be for caregivers, patients, and healthcare workers. So it's a mix. And as of right now, I'm starting to finalize what stories are being added to and what poetry is being added to it. And I'm telling you, it is just so many of it hits home. Like I stop and cry because I'm reading it and I'm like, this is so powerful. And to make one exclusively for cancer survivors, patients, and healthcare workers would be even more phenomenal because I think anybody can pick up those books and really know and feel that if you've been in those shoes, or even if you have not been. One of the things I learned from my employment and my profession is that there's a lot of opportunity where people want to speak and want to tell their stories, and there's not enough opportunity for them to do it. And so this would be a really great way to collect those stories for sure.
Absolutely. And even healing
Yeah,
through their writing as well.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
excellent. So tell us about the anthologies that you're working on now.
So I'm working on currently, the first project is called Tales from the Bedside. So that's stories of patients, caregivers, and healthcare workers. I want all aspects of the bedsides shared in that so that we can really just see like a full circle. We have fiction stories as well as nonfiction. And so it's been like a really nice mix between the two. Lots of people talking about their own personal journey, and then many people talking about their journey as a caregiver or losing a parent and the grief behind losing a parent. And so it's been just really beautiful. The second one is called Shadows from the Front Line, and it's meant to have stories from military members, frontline workers. So we're talking EMS, law enforcement, any of those realm of frontline workers, in order to put all those stories together because it brings a different essence, right? Like there's a lot more grit that comes behind that and those stories that they share because of just like the craziness that they see at the front line. And then the last project is called Echoes from the Other Side. And I'm just so, I keep saying it, not that they're not all my favorite, but I'm so excited about that one because that is, we're going to start tapping into the spiritual realm, and we're going to tap into the ghost apparitions and the angels and the, coming back from the other side and all of these different things that happens on the other side of things that, from what we see with our naked eye. And so I'm very excited about that one, and that, and each of them have their own release dates. But lots going on behind just even the first one with having a launch event ready and everything for it. So I'm very excited.
So that was going to be my next question. Do you
Mhm.
have the dates? When are they slated to be published, or
Yes.
even if you could share with, the listeners, what dates or deadlines that you have
Uh-huh.
for each anthology in
Yep.
case, anyone who's listening is interested in also
Yeah.
contributing?
So Tales from the Bedside will probably already, the deadline would have already been met. But if anybody's interested in Tales from the Bedside, keep an ear out for the upcoming one, potentially oncology patients, or maybe even a part two to it because there were so many stories to share. That one is deadline is the end of this month in February, so February 28th, and then it's slated to be published by mid-April. Aggressive, aggressive deadline for me because I want it to be out and on the shelves and ready to purchase for Hospital Week and Nurses Week, which is the first week of May. So I
Okay.
want to make sure that all of that follows in just perfectly. So anybody who's looking for a gift to give to their healthcare provider, to their favorite nurse, or like family members who doesn't know what to gift their nurses, like when we're as parents, when we have no idea what to give teachers, and they probably have a million different things that's the shape of an apple already, like you just don't know what to get them anymore. So this is a great gift to give them come May, the first week of May. So that was the intent behind that one. With Shadows from the Front Line, the deadline for that one is the end of May, and it's slated to be published around August or so, as long as it's before Veterans Day being November 11th. And then the next one, Echoes from the Other Side, is the deadline is the end of August, with a projection of being completed very aggressive again sometime in September in order to be out by Halloween. So,
That's
and then
perfect.
all of these, of course, will be ready for the holidays. It'll be bundled, and then we'll have like a bundle set too for the holidays.
And we'll also be ready for the book fair
Yes,
and
yes,
book fair
yes,
season. Yes, very
yes.
important, very important. All right, so we've got that down. I want to return to
Hmm.
the the novel, the first one that you have in the Query Trenches now.
Yes,
And you mentioned that it's a series. Is it going to be a series? Those other two novels that you mentioned, the second one that I think you said is finished and it's going to hit the Query
yes,
Trenches as soon as the other one
yes.
is released. And then the third one, which is romance, but you're weaving
Hmm.
in some paranormal,
Yeah.
are all those part of the same series?
Yes and no. Two are, so there's three projects. The first two are, so Bound in Silence and Out of Reach are both based out of Miami Beach Medical Center. So they're following nurses from different timelines. The first one is current timeline, 2026 timeline. The second one is actually 2011, 2012 timeline. And the reason for that is because the male main character is a veteran, and I needed it to be during kind of the slowing down of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So during the global war on terrorism. And that's the reason why it was set back a couple years, but there are cameos from individuals from the first book who's in 2026. Are there some cameos of them in 2011 as younger versions of themselves? So those two are meant to be in one series. They can be sold alone or they can be in a series, but they you don't have to pick up one to read the other. So they can be read out of order as well. And I do have plans for me to have at least a third book, maybe a fourth book added to that series as well. Again, completely disconnected from the previous book. It just all happens to happen in that same medical setting.
Okay.
The last book, the one that I'm currently working on right now, that's fantasy and dystopian. My goal for that one is to make it a duology. So I know what this book is, and I already have an idea what book two is. And just to have it as a duology so that we can, go from this dystopian and fantasy era into the next dystopian and fantasy era. So I have a vague idea of number two, but I have no idea what that's. I know who the character is stemming from. I know where that link is. I just don't know what that story is yet.
Okay, and so coming back to the first one, are you writing it in a third person point of view? Are you okay? And is
No.
it or is it multi views?
The first one, it mainly follows one nurse from her first person point of view.
Okay.
Um, there are different flashbacks that occur in order to move the story forward with the topic. And so the flashbacks that occur um, are not hers. And then at the without giving spoilers, she is out of commission for a short period in the at the end. And so because she's out of commission and unable to share her own stories, we have other POVs that come in um around her. And
Okay.
so yeah.
Okay. And the one that comes after that one is also
Multiple.
from her point of view?
No, the second one that comes after that is two completely different main characters. We have a female main character and a male main character. And she's not even, character from book one's not even in it at all. And
Okay.
so female and male, they're husband and wife. And so
Okay.
it alternates between the two of them.
Okay.
And there's some paranormal
Right, that's the
aspects
one. So
weaved
multi
into it.
POV with,
Yes.
paranormal then. Okay, that sounds so
Yes.
interesting. I can't wait till they're out. So
Me
you're in the
too.
query trenches now.
Yes.
And how is that going? How is that part of the
Oh,
journey?
it's awful. It's not fun. And I think, I approached it with the wrong strategy. And I won't say what it is because it's so embarrassing, but I approached it with the wrong strategy. And I think I need to just be smarter. My goal now with the query trenches because I ended up pulling everything right around the holidays. I pulled everything. I was like, you know what, pull, 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 so that I can revamp it. I rewrote a brand new opening chapter, so that it really immerses you into the situation faster and quicker, so that you can see what the story is about. And then I rewrote my query letter, and yeah. And so with the new chapter, I had to now go back and weave it back into the story throughout all the different chapters. And then I had to write a new ending to explain what actually happened at the beginning. Because as readers, you just kind of go, oh, that's kind of cool. Like this happened and that's it. But it keeps resurfacing and you don't know why it's resurfacing until the very, very end when she explains what had happened the very first time that you actually got to meet her in the book. And so because of that, I think it's going to do way better in terms of the opening chapters because I realized the first 10 pages are so important that my first 10 pages originally wasn't strong enough and it didn't sell the story at all. It just kind of gave a scenario with the main character in it, but it didn't sell the story as a medical thriller. And so I went back and really like my first now chapter zero is what I'm naming it for now, but it'll be chapter one. It now has 8.5 pages of just completely immersed into a scene in the middle of an easy situation. Um,
Did you
so, you know,
Yeah, and so did you ever consider that chapter that you are now weaving in, the first chapter, did you ever consider making that the prologue? And then
It doesn't have to be. In this sense, it doesn't need to be a prologue because the way I've weaved it in has worked out so perfectly where the scene ends and where the next chapter, which was the original chapter one, starts, it like weaves in really, really well. At least I think so. I'm sure literary agents will read it and be like, what is this girl doing? But I think it works out way better now. And I have been smarter because now I actually once I'm done with it and I printed it out and I'm reading it and like revising it on paper, I actually tab where 10 page, 15 page, 20 page, 25 page, and 30 page marks are because those have been the frequency of what like querying agents have asked for. And so now I know, okay, if my first 10 pages isn't wowing me, then it's definitely not going to wow a lit agent who's like reading thousands at a time. And so I've gotten much more smart about the process now that I've gone through it and failed horribly. So, you know.
you can't say you failed. I always like to look at it as, the agent has to be good for you too.
Hmm.
It can't just be you being the author for them. They have to be the agent for you as well.
Yeah.
So um, it's more like redirection, not rejection, but redirection.
Right, right.
So
There
that
you
you
go.
can find that agent that's going to be like your best cheerleader. You don't want an agent
Right.
that, it's not going to be, because even if they take, your book or any author's book, doesn't mean that they can sell them.
Hmm.
A lot of, sometimes a lot of situations where, the author gets agented and then the book is out on submission, but, the publishers are not
Yeah.
biting,
Yeah.
and they have to like either drop them and then look for another agent and, hope that the next one's going to be better. So it doesn't end. It's, there.
Right. Yeah.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
It's
So you
definitely.
haven't failed. You've just, and it's also a learning experience. It
Yeah.
really is a learning experience. It really is it's a tough one. It's a
Yeah.
tough one, but it's all for the better. It's all for
Exactly.
the better. So
Exactly.
have you thought of, I hate to ask this question because, I put myself in this same situation. Is there an ultimatum? Like if an agent doesn't, if you don't find your dream agent, let's put it,
Hmm.
if you don't find your dream agent by a certain time, would
Hmm.
you consider self-publishing? And how do you feel about that?
I would not necessarily put like a specific timestamp on it. Like I feel like I've done enough revision now, and if I go back with a different mindset in like being more strategic in terms of the agents that see, before on Query Tracker, you can click certain things and then the names will pop up, and I'm like, oh, I click thriller and suspense, and the names pop up. And then I'm getting rejection letters that say, unfortunately, I'm not working with thriller at this time. And so I'm thinking, well, but that's how I found you, like, and so the query tracker is not always honest or updated, let's say. And so you really have to go onto these agents' websites and their social media and see what their most recent manuscript wish list is. And so that I didn't know. And because of that, I think I had like a lot of missed opportunities. Well, I mean, I guess they wouldn't have been looking for my type of story anyways, but the hard rejections that I kept getting right off the bat was really hard to my ego. And it just made me think, maybe this isn't right. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Something I'm doing is wrong. And then you see like these other people who are like, oh, I've had, 5 manuscript full requests and every single one was an offer on the table. And I'm just like, I can't even get one to say maybe. Like just ask me for a manuscript. I'll be happy to send it to you like within 24 hours too, 12 hours even,
Yeah.
and but instead I hear from scammers all the time. So
That's another
yeah.
topic that's so important to discuss because
Yeah.
they're out there and a lot of the agents are now, you see it on social media and on their websites where they say, look out, there are scammers using my name. That's so
Mm-hmm.
scary and it's so
It
sad
is. It's very.
because especially first-time authors are desperate. I mean, if they
Yeah.
just, see an email from an supposed agent name, they're all for it. I mean, there's even when they get the hybrid
Hmm.
emails, and they don't realize that they're gonna have to pay out. They just see publishing, you
Hmm.
publish your book. And we just open up because that's like all we want to do. And
Yeah.
a lot of authors, especially first time authors, are not aware.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important that all the readers or all the authors better said out there know that the agent is not just gonna reach out to you. It has happened. It has
Mhm.
happened. If you've gone on social media, for example, and you've put like an agent guide, or you've posted something that's so intriguing about
Mhm.
your book, whether it's a novel or nonfiction, that, and you hashtag, literary agents, but you know where it's coming from, right? And you've got
Yeah.
social media, and usually it's, they got the little check mark or something.
Yeah.
But so, it's official, but it is difficult. The being in
Yeah.
trenches is very difficult. And those authors that, like you say, that have received so many requests for, not only just requests, but the offer, right? And I
Right. Yeah.
received about 5 offers from, those
Mhm.
there are not a lot of those.
Mhm.
That's a very common situation. So definitely
Yeah.
don't that, or any author that's listening,
Yeah.
get you down, because that's just very difficult. I mean,
Mhm.
they always say you have to write. Agents want an incredible, amazing manuscript. That's what you have to have for. And I always say it's not. You have to be lucky.
Mhm.
To be lucky, because even if the manuscript is not from the get-go, what they're reading is not, there's always going to be editing once they
Yeah.
get their hands on it, and then the publisher is more editing. You just have to get them to believe in what you're writing. Like, they just have to
Mhm.
be a fan of it, and then they're gonna make sure that it's the best that it can be. So
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to be like so amazing from the beginning. I mean, good enough, but
Right.
just being lucky enough to find that dream agent that
Yeah.
it's your story that has to resonate with something in them.
Mhm.
They also
Mhm.
want the story out, because it's almost like they're healing as well.
Yeah.
Your book. So, that's what we have to work on manifesting, is that
Yeah.
that dream agent.
Right.
But we don't give up, right? We don't give
No.
up. I also wanted to talk to you because about this whole process. There's some there's some authors that say, if their book doesn't get picked up, then they work on the next book, and they
Mhm.
work on the next book, and neither of those
Mhm.
get picked up. And they say that they don't self-publish those books. They wait
Mhm.
for their third, their fourth to get picked up by an agent. And
Mhm.
then they bring in, now
Yeah.
that agents hit, they bring in the other books, and
Yeah.
then they, edit those, and then get those published. How do you feel about that?
I 100% think that that is a good strategy.
Yeah.
And that's my intent too, is, I've written book one, I've written book two. Book three is a detour to a different genre, but the next book that I plan to write will be feeding back into the series potential books. And I really, really think book two has a very sellable story. Just because book one was sexual violence, book two is not. Book two is romance, it's paranormal thriller. It's very, very different. If you've ever, a comp title is where the lemon tree as long as the lemon tree grows, which has paranormal aspects in it. And I absolutely 100% love the story so much that I had told my husband, I said, you need to read this book. And he's like, huh? And I'm like, no, I was so aggressive. I'm like, you have to read this book. It's really, really good. And that's what inspired my second book, because I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a story about a soldier who has PTSD, who's now a nurse. And how do all these little things weave into each other? And of course, there's got to be a paranormal element to it. And so I think book two is going to do really well, at least spark some more curiosity than book one did. And then book three, I still haven't 100% brainstormed what that would look like, but obviously it has to be something that's very on trend with what's going on in the world right now, or what's going on in the book world right now, actually, and see where it goes from there. But the intent is keep pitching these books, keep on writing. I'm not going to stop. It's not going to I have so much to share in my head that it's not going to stop. This takes me zero effort. You asked earlier, how do I do all of this? I do it at nighttime. I just sit here and I'm in my own world, and everybody, my son's playing games and my husband's playing games, and I'm over here just in my own world. Like, I'm not going to sit here and just, like, I'll watch
I,
TV every now and
I
then, but I'm
imagine I
writing.
imagine you putting on like a cape with an SA on it, like super author, because it's like
Yeah.
you've written so much. You really have
Yes.
done a lot in a short period of time. Like, that's
Yeah.
admirable. It really is. Like, I look up to you, just like, how she can do it, I can do it. There's no excuse. But I can't. But I can't. I don't have it.
Yeah.
But um, but I know that I can, because you've
Yes.
inspired, just like anybody that's going to be listening to this is
Yep.
going to be inspired. It's like, wow, if Dr. Jazz can do it like this, I can do it too. There's no excuse, because
Yeah.
it's all excuses, right? There's
Right.
plenty of time. So, okay, you read an excerpt at the last meeting during the readers. Is that part of the second book?
It is.
Okay,
It is.
that's
It is.
that's really gonna reel some interest in there.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it doesn't come okay, so the first scene, so for those of you who are following, it's two excerpts that I read during our members reading at South Florida Writers Association. And I was peer pressured. No, I was inspired to do spicy scenes. And so in a room full of people, I brought three spicy scenes, and I left the spiciest one like under my chair, and I walked up with two spicy scenes. The first one starts opening with the wife and the husband, and then her providing herself self-pleasure. And it's a closed door scene. So it was easy to read because it was just, like you get to it and like it's climatic, and then suddenly you're like, oh, she's done. Like so it's a closed door scene. And then the second one was, her and somebody who was not her husband, And so and but it was so fun to write, and I was just so inspired. And it's because I had wrote a short story for um like a spicy franchise. I don't even know what to call them, but they were doing an anthology, and it was supposed to be spice, and the criteria to write it was three spice peppers and above. And three spice peppers and above means there has to be one fully open scene with all of the works. And so I learned a lot when I did that. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And so I just start writing away. And so that actually is a scene for the main male character who I'd mentioned, but it's with his love affair with a woman years ago. So this was like going way back in time with him and her. And she never, she ends up dying. I think I can say that much without spoiling the book, because it's known from the very beginning in the book that she's no longer alive. And so this wife of his is competing against this memory of a dead person. So, it's very difficult for her because she's competing against this. But that short story that I wrote, that's like 10,000 word count, was so spicy that I was like, I cannot. First, I pulled it back from the anthology. I submitted it, and then I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm going to use this as a bonus story. I'm pulling it back. So I pulled it back. So it's now a bonus story to my second book, which will make it 95,000 word count. But in my head, marketing and strategy, I'm going to only offer that bonus short story in a hardcover book. So, so I want readers to be like so engulfed in this world here that when they find out there's an entire another short story with Dominic, the main character, and his past girlfriend, then they want to read about it, because you want to know what has this man so consumed with this love that he cannot let go, even though she's passed for at least 6 years. Like she's been out of his life for at least 6 years. He's remarried. He's found new love back with his, original high school sweetheart, but it's just not the same. And so I want characters to be like, what is that? And so that's my marketing strategy, is adding the bonus short story back in. And that's what inspired the romantic pieces throughout this story. Was I was like, well, it's going to be so spicy at the end. I have to add a little bit of spice here and there now. So
Yeah.
that's where it came from.
I think that's excellent. I'm excited for that. I'm going to be getting the hardcover.
Yes.
I'll be getting the hardcover. If you want to get
When it
hard,
releases in
get
10
the
years.
hardcover. Yeah. Three peppers, you said, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, three peppers. So how interesting. Okay, so yeah, when you started talking about the second one, I thought, I think that excerpt she wrote must be from that. How interesting
Hmm.
the paranormal gets weaved in there too. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
So did you ever have that story published in that anthology? Or you,
No, I pulled it back.
okay.
I pulled it back because it was so good. I was like, I can't let go of this one and like have it out there in the world. I want it to be special for this book because it was so, I wrote that first. I wrote the short story first with zero intentions. No, I wrote it with intentions to use the main character, but because the story was weaved in so much, like there's just this mystery behind him and his ex, not his ex really, like the woman who died, like there was so much passion behind how he still loves her and dreams about her that I had to bring it out, like I had to like reward the readers with the story, because now everybody's going to say, what's the background? So
I'm excited for that.
yeah.
So speaking about anthologies, you've had other short stories published in
Yes.
some anthologies recently. Tell us about.
Yes. So the first one that I had published was in the Wonder Anthology, and that one is called Coexist. And I actually pulled the work bestie from book one. Book one follows Rain, the nurse, but her best friend is Luna Quintanilla in that story. And so I took Luna and I gave her her own story with Rain. Rain's in it as well. But it's just a completely different scenario about a very rare genetic disorder that happened. And this person arrives in the hospital, and these nurses and these healthcare workers, the doctors, don't know how to treat it because it just is so bizarre. So that was part of the Wonder Anthology, just about how wondrous our bodies can be with the genetic makeup that comes with us. And then the other one is a very short flash fiction anthology on first steps was the theme. And so for that, I wrote a scene, a 300 word count scene of a baby being born and having its first cry. And so that was a very express story. And so that was fun. And yeah, there's been a couple others that I've submitted to. I probably should follow up on them, but I've taken a few back and I'm submitting a couple of stories into the Tales from the Bedside anthology that I'm doing. Some of them are going to be real nonfiction stories of my actual experience as a registered nurse. And then like one or two of them, I haven't decided which ones are going to be the fiction stories. So,
Social media. You
mhm,
have a few different handles for Instagram,
I
correct?
do.
Can you tell us which handles are for what? Because I think you have some for your anthology so that people or
Yes.
authors or those who want to contribute find the information there. And then you have, I think you have like a main one that's actually I find it very entertaining, very, very entertaining, where you pretty much put all of the news on there as well. Even if it's about the anthologies, you include that in there. But can you share for the
Yes.
readers your handles for Instagram?
Yes. So for Instagram, I believe there's periods in it. My writer's handle is j.c.sang, so JC Sang, and then
SANG.
SANG, yes. And then my other one is Code Blue Publishing. So if you look at any of those on Instagram, you should be able to find it. If you go to You can go to jcsangofficial.com or you can go to codebluepublishing.com as well, and it'll be linked on the bottom if you can't find it on Instagram. TikTok, I only have my author's account because it's just too overwhelming to keep trying to do things between the two.
Mhm.
I'm trying to see what bites, and in some cases, sometimes TikTok is working out really well, and sometimes it's Instagram. So it's like, and then it's the same exact reel or content that does way better on one versus the other, and so I just feed it to both. I'm also on Facebook as well. So, and then on Twitter, X, as well. So, but you can link all of those through jcsangofficial.com or codebluepublishing.com. And you can find all the information on the anthologies and all the upcoming projects and stuff from there as well. But yeah, that's how you find me.
Excellent. So technically you're a published author
Yes.
because you've had some work published. So you're a published author and there's a whole lot more more to come, a lot more
Yes.
exciting stuff to come.
I
Okay.
hope
Is
so.
there anything else you want to share with us before we close it up?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for your time, and I've had a really fun time.
Thank you. Thank you. This was just so entertaining hearing about these stories. It's like I can't wait to read them. I know I've read some of your um stories and I've heard some of the
Mhm.
excerpts and it's 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 really exciting. I mean, I have to say you're an excellent writer. You really
Thank
are.
you. Thank you.
So
Likewise.
thank you. Thank you for sharing your time and coming on South Florida Writers Association Authors Showcase. And the next time that your, you'll be displaying this book will be
Mhm.
at the Mango Conference on February 21st.
Yes.
The South Florida Writers Association, which is going to be taking place next Saturday, February 21st.
Mhm.
This will probably come out. Wait, so thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Jazz. I
Thank you so much.
appreciate your time. Thank you for gracing Author Showcase with your presence. And um, all the readers, I'm sure, are very excited about all of your books coming up. So make sure to follow her on Instagram. Check out her website, which we will list here at the bottom. And just follow South Florida Writers Association. And thank you so much. Have a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you. Have a great one.